welcome to the inaugural session of a guy, a Hoosier, and a Hillbilly walk into a podcast. How's everybody doing tonight?
We're good.
Excellent.
First night, so for everyone listening, please remember that we'll probably see some hiccups tonight. Hopefully you'll laugh with us and nod at us or at us. We don't care. We're happy.
Absolutely.
So let's do a little background on ourselves real quick, just so the crowd can get to know us a little bit, where we come from. Hoosier, why don't you lead off?
Oh man, you want to know about me? All right. Well, let's see. You know, former military. I was in the Navy for over 6 years, and got into computer security. Yay! I'm a gun owner. I know, controversial, right? I'm just living life with with my family and friends.
Very nice. Very nice. Mr. Hillbilly, your background.
Yes, so the hillbilly is I, and I hail from lots of places, but mainly a little small town in Missouri, and that's really where my nickname started. Basically, I've done a lot of blue collar work, traveled the country on the railroads, and then eventually decided that I would go the white collar route, get a nice suit and tie, and got into computers by circumstance, and even by more circumstance, got into security. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice. Well, I am from Texas, born and bred. Lived here pretty much all my life, with the exception, spent a couple years in Hawaii. Got too hot in Texas back in year 2000, decided to move, came back, got into cybersecurity. I've been behind the keyboard ever since. It's about 22 years now behind the keys. So, and just for those listening, we have a bit of tech skills. So we know a little bit about technology, security, engineering, all kinds of stuff. So, but that's not what this show is about. This show is literally about whatever. So we're here to talk. Hopefully you will join along in the conversation. Remember, please subscribe. Please leave comments anytime you can, and we will gladly read those comments. So one comment actually came in from a YouTuber, guys. The gentleman that I speak to on Patreon from time to time told him that we were starting up a podcast, and he actually requested a topic for us, and I can get that pulled up here for just in just a moment. Can read off what he was talking about.
While he's doing that, not too long ago, I was in Houston, Texas, and we stayed at this hotel. Nice hotel, very comfortable. But when I walked into the bathroom, like the toilet was really low to the ground. I thought, oh well, that's for accessibility, right? Didn't think much of it. Sat down and got the shock of my life. The way they had made the toilet lower to the ground was by cutting the bowl in half, but not lowering the water level. So when you sat down, not only were the boys swimming, but other parts of you were playing submarine.
No.
Boy, that was the shock of a life. I had to jump up. Yeah, it was an interesting. We were there with some friends too, and one of the other guys and I had that conversation about water's cold and deep too.
I mentioned you don't want to be the one to follow up and find warm water.
No, no, you don't.
All right, so I've got this up here. He was writing back to me. He said, "Well, I've lost it. There to go. Here we go. If you're in the market for ideas, right now, a super hot topic that I haven't seen much coverage on is data archiving. More specifically, ways that the average dude can prevent 1984 from wiping out their favorite content or literature." So his request basically is to see if we could talk about ways that the average person can uh, store up their I guess their books, regardless of topics, whether that's fiction, nonfiction, how to's, survival guides, maybe for him, radio, as well as video and imagery. I guess this is kind of facing an apocalyptic platform, and that's what he would like for us to discuss. What do you gentlemen think about that?
So, my wife and I are actually going through this right now because we have boxes and boxes and boxes of photos and of instruction manuals and everything else that we've been moving over the years. We've moved 7 times in like 10 years. So, and then we bought a house and we thought we were going to stay there for 30 years. We ended up having to sell that place. So we decided to get a really cool copier. And it's a scanner actually. It scans photos, documents, receipts. My wife scanned about probably 500 photos in less than 20 minutes. And the idea is instead of carrying around all the hard copy, we could upload it to a computer, then switch it over to an SSD drive, and have a few of them and have them locked up in some lock boxes, and then have that computer locked away in a storage cabinet, uh, completely unhooked from society, so that it's completely untouched and will work 20 years from now. Hopefully, that's what we came up with so far.
I like it.
I've gotten into a habit of, I'll be honest, this is going to sound bad coming from a techie, but when I think about, world ending into solutions, I've been doing the opposite of going from hard copy to soft and going and keeping hard copies preserved. These home based vacuum sealers can be awesome. I actually have a buddy who's more of a prepper, and some of the things that he does that was just kind of mind blowing to me when it came to that was like he's vacuum sealing rifles, oiling them up and then vacuum sealing them to keep the moisture in the air and everything out of them, and then doing the same with like ammo and seeds and all that. But I've been doing it with like books that I would want to have or be able to pass down after if it hit the fan or whatever, because I really think if there's going to be electricity, it's going to be more for wanting to preserve food and stuff and not really running computers and TVs and stuff. So but with regards to that, I did a little bit of research for those in the digital world. A professional service that is kind of interesting is the Arctic World Archive, and you can actually buy storage where they store it on a proprietary format that they have, a proprietary media, and they store it up there where right near where the seed vault is up there
In the Arctic.
and I was thinking, oh, it's going to be expensive. Like, I think 1 terabyte or something, or how much was it? Might have been like 500 gigs. Is like $19 a month.
Wow.
It was really cheap from what I remember. But you have other options for the home based person, right? If you want to store in the cloud, you've got your Google Drive, your Dropboxes, your OneDrive, right? And even some of the paid for automatic backups like Carbonite and Backblaze. But I like what Hillbilly was talking about, putting it on different SSDs and just storing them separately. That's a pretty good one.
It is, and I agree. I think both of those are decent solutions. My only concern with storing that information in a cloud-based scenario is having access to the internet, right? I guess it really would depend on what type of quote unquote apocalypse that we're going to be facing, right? So EMP, for instance, right? That's an electromagnetic pulse from, I guess, a high altitude nuclear weapon, or let's say mass coronal ejection from the sun, right? Now we're facing a whole different thing, and I'm betting that Arctic vault probably has EMP like Faraday cages and the whole 9 yards. Probably have backups of the actual drive stored separately or tape backup, something like that. And I think that's really cool. And maybe something
Yeah,
I'll look at.
it's also in a mine, so it's in an
Right.
old mine shaft, so it's way down, beneath the earth. It's kept cold so that it's all protected in that aspect, and then they have proprietary format to where it's kept offline, but you can actually get it through the cloud, or you can have a local repository keep a copy of it so that you can get physical access to it, and then that physical access can be backed up to the one in Norway too. But yeah, if we're talking about like EMP post-apocalyptic, I mean, did you guys ever watch the show Revolution?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
People lost their mind. They're like, what? I can't turn on my computer. I can't get on my phone, man.
You can't turn on the wall light. You can't start your car. I mean, it's a whole different level. Your phone is cooked. Everything down to your blender, even the dumbest of devices, depending on scenario and severity. Yeah, anything that's even close to the grid can be cooked.
Hoosier brings up a really good point because if, the hillbilly in me goes back to Charlton Heston and Planet of the Apes, world destruction, right? So, what if, is there something to be said about doing the old time capsules? Like, I don't think people do them anymore, but if you remember, like in elementary school and stuff, you do a time
Yeah,
capsule, you bury it in the ground, you seal it up. Is that even still a viable way of storing data? Is, digging your own hole, creating your own time capsule for safekeeping in the event of an ENP?
mm, no, it's
Yeah,
a great question.
there's a lot of stuff out there about people doing that kind of thing, along with their bunkers. They're burying caches along the way to get to where their bunker is, if they're not living on top of it. So yeah, I've seen some of that where they're building those stashes. But yeah, having backups of important things and putting them in a fire safe, vacuum sealed is great. And the vacuum sealers are cheap nowadays, and you can get big rolls of the bags and be able to store all sorts of different sizes of things. But I also have like certain comic books that are vacuum sealed, because yes, we will need important documents like how to survive, but you, you need some entertainment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that what a lot of preppers overlook, me being a prepper myself for many years now, is that entertainment, right? We get our guns, we get our beans, and we get our band-aids, right? Bullets, beans, and band-aids. But how many people are thinking about the kids being able to play something, right? All the way down to maybe something as simple as a deck of cards or board games, even a badminton set, right?
I like the idea of doing board games because you just got to make sure all the pieces are there before you vacuum seal it, because
Yeah,
that would just that would just take me off. There's a piece missing. How can there be a piece? Already a stressful time.
the one thing that I miss more than anything, and of course they don't sell them anymore, they don't make them anymore. But if I were to vacuum seal anything, it'd be lawn darts.
Oh, you can still get real metal lawn darts. You can
Really?
get them at garage sales. Yes, if you find the right garage sale, the right collector, you can still get the lawn darts. You just have to be very careful about who knows that you have them. Depending on where you live, people will call the authorities if they see you playing with their traditional lawn darts.
Well, I mean, children throwing giant metal spikes at each other, I can see how that'd be frowned upon. But we used to do it all the time as kids. We used to throw them up in the air and stand as still as you could and see where they're falling. Of course, you'd move out of the way. Of course, it was going to hit you. But I thought it was cool when we were kids trying to tempt fate. So going back to the question real quick, I did want to, since he had posed it to me, and I've had about some time. I can't even think of the whole time, but I've had some time to think about it and look it up. There's some open source options out there too. One of which is called Kiwix. And Kiwix was originally developed. It's a software. You take like a USB drive, and then you can save mass amounts of storage to it, such as Wikipedia. If you want to save all of Wikipedia, you can actually download it. There are YouTube channels and content creators that actually make their information available for download directly into a Kiwix volume. You can grab stuff from different universities. There's medical documentations. There's like a Wikimed for medical. There's crazy amounts of things that you can download into these storage devices. Now, for those that may want to harden those, you could take that, you could drop it into, say, a USB bag, or I'm not a USB bag. Well, I guess technically they make USB bags that are meant for EMPs, right? So now you can protect this from an EMP. And then there's also sold solutions out there as well. One of which is made here in Texas. It's called GridBase. And GridBase is actually a really cool thing. As a matter of fact, it was funny. T-Rex Arms, a very amazing content creator, did a video on it earlier today. They released it. They probably shot it yesterday or the day before. But what it is, it's similar. It's a device that you can plug into your computer. You can put a whole bunch of content on it, but it has a built-in battery. It has built-in Wi-Fi that up to 5 people can connect to. And then you can either pull that data across, or there are streaming. You can stream it off of it. They also make a base station. I think the base station's like crazy money. It's like $1,200, but it's a hardened piece of material, right? So it's EMP proof naturally. The pocket version is like 300, 350. I don't know. It's crazy. But there are turnkey solutions for it. And just so everyone knows, we're not sponsored by anyone. We don't get paid for any advice. But I think my plan, if I were to do something, which I should be, is to use Kiwix, and then I would probably save that Kiwix onto an old school CD-ROM, because or a DVD, right? So now you have a piece of media that's EMP proof. It's not magnetic like a tape or a USB. It's physically written to the drive, and you're not going to lose it in an EMP. Sure, you may have to update it from time to time, but you don't have to worry about how it's stored. You just have to, have electricity and a way to bring that info back up.
Now you bring up a good point about the media, but I wonder, and remember, I'm not an expert on any of this, so don't take my words or my comments beyond anything. Just remember, we're all just talking here.
Yeah.
This is not,
This is
but
not legal advice.
right.
Don't take it.
I've heard actually, if you use multiple layers of aluminum foil around something, it it will protect it from an EMP blast. And that, I mean, if you're gonna vacuum seal it anyway, if you wrapped it up and vacuum sealed it, or maybe you wrap it up, vacuum seal it, and then wrap that in foil and then vacuum seal that again, it might protect whatever you have in there, a hard drive, a computer, a USB drive, whatever.
Yeah. You can actually buy that EMP fabric too. You can buy it on Amazon. I believe they sell it on eBay. It's really cheap compared to buying one of those bags. One of those bags, I have a roll-up multi-liter. I think it's a 14-liter bag, and it cost like almost $150 at the time, and they've gone up since then. And it's the same fabric that you can order. All you have to do is either tape it or sew it up, and you need 3 layers, they say, for EMP, and then you can create your own pouches for it too. So there's a lot of different options for EMP. I like the Fry's way of going. They had the big EMP cages. Yeah, y'all been to a Fry's before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess bringing back to the original question about this, myself, due to life circumstances that have just happened outside of my control, I've never been able to actually prep in any type of way, and I use prepping as a loose term, about just even preparing about for getting older. I wonder if there is like a good idea to have, maybe if you're going to prep for the future, get this data offline, store it somewhere. Should you also possibly um, get some like gardening books, how to do some basic gardening, basic electrical, so that you can be self-sufficient, or at least the next generation have an idea of DC, AC, solar, Wi-Fi, how to generate Wi-Fi connections, so that the information's not lost with the generation. Right? If you're going to preserve the data, maybe think about the future of like who could use the information that I have stored in the bag, in the vacuum sealed bag, or on the CD, or on the SSD.
Yeah, and that's, you bring up some good points there. One of the things that my wife wants to do is start building books, or getting, information gathered about medicinal plants, basically apothecary stuff, being able to, because, you're not going to be able to mass produce pills anymore. You got to know what to use, and how to use it, and what brings down a fever, what is a good natural antibiotic that you can, and then how do you use it, because if some plants are great, but if you use too much of it, it does the opposite, right? So yeah, those types of things. And then she also, wants to make sure, like, people people know how to do things like crochet, to make clothing that way.
Well, and I've been prepping for almost 2 decades now, so I've got a little bit under my belt. I'm not an expert. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm not an expert on the subject matter, but what I have thought about, and I still think it's true, is that nobody can ever truly be prepared. And what I mean by that is Mark Zuckerberg's a billionaire. He's not prepared. And the reason I say that is because you can't resupply, right? What you have for your prep is finite, and the knowledge, like you're saying, I think is far more important than any other preparation that you could have to pass it on, because nobody's going to come to help you. No teachers are going to exist unless you create them. The whole advancement comes to a halt at that point, right? Everything gets set back. Um, there's no supply line anymore. So it's up to us to actually carry that forward. And the knowledge you guys are talking about, I think you're spot on.
Yeah, and it's having that knowledge, and then also know where you live, know where things are, and have a general idea, a general plan of what you're going to do, even if you don't know everything. I watch a lot of these different shows and stuff that have been on. We talked about Revolution. Jericho was another one. But really, if everything went to Hades in a handbasket, right? I think the only true movie I've ever seen that really depicts what I picture man being like is Book of Eli. I mean, and
Yes.
that's an intense movie. And the interesting thing about that movie was they never actually showed a lot of it. It was just implied by the shadows, or the sounds, of what was happening. You knew what was happening because of that.
I agree, definitely.
Have either of y'all ever seen The Road? It was a book, The Road. That is a bleak movie.
I I agree. Yeah, that one's also pretty. pretty up there. I think the book is more bleak. But yeah,
I just think back to the scene where he's digging in that Coke machine and he pulls out that Coke. And the little girl's never had one in her life, and she may never have another one again. Just out of sheer luck. And I was just like, man, I'd hate for that for my kids. Anyway, sorry, I'm taking this down a dark road. We want to keep this up light.
yeah, we want to keep this up. So I've got a question for you. I read a lot of fantasy fiction novels, and a lot of them are different plays on the same thing where mana is introduced into Earth, or a person's taken from Earth and put into a mana rich environment, right? And they start to level up, and they get skills and abilities and all that, right? So playing a game here, Mr. Hillbilly, if you were thrown into a situation like that, what fantasy or fiction world or environment would you want to be put into? Like if you were picked up and dropped into the middle of an environment where you've got to level up, do skills and all that kind of stuff. What kind of environment would you want?
That's a good question. So I'm a big history buff. And this is by no means a political statement of any kind. It simply just has to do with the actual countryside, the landscape, the nature. It would be more of a modern day Russia Siberia landscape that I would like. Now, and again, I'm taking all politics, no politics involved in this. It's purely the landscape. And the reason for that is because the landscape is so fertile and you have such a diversity of wildlife, of plants, of vegetation, water, aquifers, underground water. So it'd be more of a landscape like that, but no gigantic prehistoric beings, no dinosaurs, no big scary things like that. Ideally, no snakes. I'm not a big snake person. So things like that. As far as people go, I would say more of a barter system type of people. Working together, not really focused on getting gold or silver or cash, anything like that. But so kind of like a pioneer prairie days, kind of a barrage of things there with that statement, but frontier type lifestyle would be ideal. So kind of like a cross between Last of the Mohicans meets Dances with Wolves meets a couple other things.
So when this question was first asked to me, my initial response, my initial G knee jerk reaction is Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms.
Mm.
I've been
Oh,
playing in that world ever since I was young. I read about it, in novels and everything else. So my mind immediately goes there. But then when I sit back and I think about it, I start thinking, but really, I'm more of a Shadowrun cyberpunk type person. I would probably thrive better in that with guns and those types of things. But then I think about the anime I watch and I'm like, no, I'm Mech Warrior. I want the giant freaking robot. I want to be inside the giant robot, controlling the robot, and fighting the bad guys. That's kind of probably where I'd want to be. But then again, I'm like, just throw me anywhere. You know, just give me the rules or don't, and just throw me somewhere, and you know, I'm gonna do my best to survive. What about you, guy? So
Um, Mine would be a toss up. I think I'm kind of with you. Um, Immediately go to Gundam Suit Mobile, and then the other side of that is Star Citizen, right? So I'm a big Star Citizen fan, and some of the stuff they showed over this last weekend was amazing, all the way down to being able to build and produce your own space stations for your orgs that are massive. Yeah, that I think that's the way I'd have to go. Lots of space, lots of guns, lots of stuff to do.
want stuff to
so
blow up, basically.
Yes, I like explosions.
So I read a series called 2 Week Curse. Very much like 2 Week Curse. It's a fun one to read. Shout out to Michael Sheffield. It's a good series. Really liked it. Another one that I just have never been able to put down. So the book comes out and I'm like reading it, front to back in 3 days and not really spacing it out. Is He Who Fights with Monsters. Um,
Yes,
Oh, yes, yes.
that is a great series. I also I got turned on to one that's really fun called Beware of Chicken.
I've not heard of this.
If you get a chance and you've got some free time, and again, these are books that I read for leisure, not to learn something, not to be. It's my downtime. It's my brain shut off time.
It's an
Uh,
escape.
yeah, you know. But those are some good series. What books like when you just want to chill and you can't be on the computer, you can't be watching TV. What kind of books do you all read?
So the book series that I like is it's by James Wesley Rawls. Patriots was the original book. Then he did Survivors and a couple of others. I just really like the stories. They're not overly political. They tell the tale of an apocalyptic time and different techniques that can be used in the real world for survival and for prepping. Yet still just tie a great story of patriotism and passion and love um, and wholesomeness. They're kind of a wholesome book. You just walk away feeling really good after reading them. Um, Another series is wow, it goes way down deep, and oh, man, I cannot remember the name now. All right, come back to me. Hillbilly.
What about yeah, Hillbilly?
That's a great question because I got out of reading books for so long that I just haven't had the time. I've been so busy with exploring nature and just going deep into my imagination while out in nature that I think the last book series I read was the Redwall series. And well, no, actually, no, that's not true. I take that back. There was a so in the probably the early 2000s, I got into this vampire series, not Twilight, just it was true vampires, um, and
We
blanking
just lost half our list.
Not that sparkly type of vampire. It was fun vampires, and it had to do with space and everything. It was pretty trippy. I would say the books that I really get into would be post-apocalyptic fantasy on Earth. That and not even gonna lie, true to my name, Hillbilly, Davy Crockett. So I'm a big Davy Crockett, Jules Verne fan. So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I grew up reading that. My mind just goes to exploration. So like when I'm sitting in the woods, I'll see some water and I'll be imagining some big squid coming out and killing me.
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah, there was a series, and so it was written by Jack Campbell, and I know one of the books is called Dreadnought, and it's a sci-fi space opera, with a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of science. But what I really liked about it was when the spaceships are fighting in space. It's not like everybody knows which way's up and which way's down, right? He actually talks it through in a three-dimensional fight, and then also the fact that you're freaking thousands of miles away. You've got a long time to see the fight coming, and fighting, and he's a retired naval officer, but he really gets into the science and the way that the fights play out, and I thought that was really interesting in the way that he did that. So that was another series I enjoyed back in the day.
Trying for the life of me to remember that other book. So you guys go ahead. I'm going to see if I can find it real quick because it's going to play into it.
But yeah, and then of course, pretty much any book by R.A. Salvatore or Ed Greenwood, especially when it has to do with the Forgotten Realms, I've read those. Big fantasy into those. Starting out as a kid reading, Lord of the Rings and those. So Hillbilly, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, I literally have a book in my hand. This is how much of a nerd I am. I told you that I used to work on the railroads, and I actually have a book in my hand called Trains, Tracks, and Travel, which is basically the history of the steam engine. It's a very, very old book. It's not in print. Hasn't been in print in probably 80 years. But that's the closest I have to any time soon of reading a book.
and see, you're talking about steam engines. That question I asked earlier about what genre would you want to be put into if you my wife would absolutely choose steampunk. She would 100% be like, the Victorian era clothes with the steampunk technology. She would absolutely be all over that one.
My wife used to work with a lady who got married, and her wedding was a steampunk theme.
That's cool. You know, People should do those types of things. I see people, go, "Oh, that's just horrible." The sanctity, it's their wedding. Let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, and who says what you have to wear at your wedding? It's your wedding.
Well, if you're from Betazoid, you don't wear anything. That was a toss out for the Star Trek fans.
All right, so since you brought it up, guy, Star Wars or Star Trek?
It's a tough call. If I exclude like everything beyond Book of Boba Fett, I'll have to go with Star Wars. Um, but I don't like the way that Star Wars is turning now, and I have to say, I mean, I'm a next gen fan. I love Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine was mine.
Yes, I love the originals too, and all the movies. Every movie I have loved. I don't care. Even the one where they go for the whales, man. Transparent aluminum.
See,
Hillbilly, Star Trek or Star Wars?
see, now you're asking the hard one. But see, I'm gonna have to go Star Trek. But I disagree with you guys because for me, it was Star Trek the original, Next Gen, and Voyager. Voyager was probably one of my favorites, but I never got into Deep Space Nine. It just wasn't my thing. But because of Star Trek, I got into Babylon 5. So,
Yeah, Babylon 5. We're not including Babylon 5 and BSG into this because you start bringing those in, you start really. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I will admit, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That's it. We're done.
I'm the same. I'm the same. Those three are my favorites.
Yes.
I had hopes. We'll go back to books again. I had hopes that when they were talking about doing movies after Return of the Jedi, that they were going to follow the Timothy Zahn series. And I was really hoping that they were going to make that canon. And they didn't. And it broke my feelings. So.
You didn't like the new orders, Planet Cannon?
I did. I was not a fan. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Book of Boba Fett,
Yeah.
uh,
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian. I like those. They're fun. I just when it comes to that, I like the three movies, and I'm kind of done after that. But I like watching some what I call people's interpretations of different aspects of that world. You know, now if we're gonna include BSG and all that, I'm gonna be probably I'm a Firefly fan. love Firefly.
Yes.
I was with Sheldon. I thought that show was going to be on forever.
Man, I thought that show was going to be, and there's so much more that they could do in that world. I do like the way the movie went. The movie I thought was very good, except they killed Leaf on the Wind.
They
Yeah.
never should have killed him. They really no.
Then he had to be Steve the Pirate. Although I love Steve.
But but Serenity brought up. I mean, it brought up such a good point of you can't kill the source, right? Like the source will always come out. The truth will always come out. It will always prevail.
I kind of liked it because I also, we started with 1984, and I'm going to bring it back to 1984. I mean, if you think about what they were trying to do on that planet, they were kind of trying to recreate 1984,
True. It's true.
and I was like, but only, uh, and Alan Tudyk is an amazing actor. I don't care what anybody says. Um, my first introduction to him was in A Knight's Tale.
Hmm.
Yeah. He was the squire, wasn't he?
Yeah, I love that movie. When I went and saw that movie in theater, though, when uh, when they find Chaucer on the road naked, and he introduces himself as Chaucer, only me and one other person in the theater laughed. I was very sad that nobody else got the joke.
I'm not gonna lie. My first introduction to Alan Tudyk was in 28 Days with Sandra Bullock. Not even gonna lie. That was my first introduction to him, and I thought he was the best character in the whole movie.
Was that? Was that was like? Was that in 2000?
Yeah, like 98 or 2000, something like that. Back when Sandra Bullock was still big.
Ooh, ouch.
Wow, we don't shame like that on here.
I
Yes, we
didn't
do.
mean it as a shame. I didn't mean
Yes,
it as a
we
shame.
we shame
You
where
know,
shame is due.
you know who else was in that movie? That's I mean, in a lot of things that I like, is Viggo Mortensen
Hmm.
Yeah, and Steve Buscemi.
and Steve Buscemi. Yes, he gets some wild roles, doesn't he?
He does.
What happened to him? I haven't seen him in a while.
Let's see, what is the last thing I saw him in? Well, in fact, I haven't seen him in a while, but he does the voice of Starscream in Transformers 1, the
Really?
latest Transformers movie. Yep.
Did not know that.
And he did the voice in Monsters for Randall.
Yeah, I knew Randall.
But yeah, he's done a lot of those. I'm trying to think of what I've seen him in last.
I think the last thing I watched him in was like Boardwalk Empire. I'm thinking of the right show.
I know he does a lot of voices, but yeah, I'm trying to think of the last thing I actually like saw his face in, that I actually watched and can say, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
That was 2014, so I'm sure he's done something since then.
He was in Grown Ups 2, the movie Grown Ups 2.
That's the book. I had to look it up. Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. That's the other books. It's three books that go into it. Netflix actually is doing a series on it, the Three Body Problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, uh, yeah. It did a decent job. It doesn't align. Well, no show ever really aligns with the book. The book is actually better and makes more sense. And, so instead of flashing the actual stars, they flash the background radiation in the book, for instance. A lot more realistic, and the show got a little bit overly bothersome.
There's there's sometimes that they make changes in movies to things in books that to me just make more sense. And there's other times I'm like, what the frick were they doing with this? A lot of young adult books that get turned into movies are just horrible. when my kids were growing up, deal was they read the book, we'd go see the movie, right? So they had to read the book first. And my kids were like in third and fourth grade reading Harry Potter and Aragon and stuff because that was the deal, right? And to all the teachers out there that are like, well, they couldn't understand, we talked about it. So, yes, they understood what they were reading. But anyway, so my son read Aragon. He was excited to go see the movie. And I read the book with him because, I wanted to know what the book was about before I took them to see something that I probably didn't want them to see. But, you know, uh, and I was like, okay. And like 30 seconds into the movie, my son's looking at me. My son's, at the time I think third grade, fourth grade, something like that. And he's like, Dad, what's this is an Aragon. I mean, and it wasn't. It was like they took the names of the characters, and that was about it.
Yep, just rewrote everything else.
But then there's other times like, so one of my movies that I can put on and just kind of zone out to is Sahara. Y'all watch? Have you watched
Oh
that movie?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
Matthew
underrated.
McConaughey.
Yep.
I still like his co-star in that. His co-star was freaking great in that. But in the movie, they change the background of the characters. Okay? So, for those that don't know, they're part of Numa, right? Which is underwater, architectural or not architectural, archaeological recovery. In the books, the main character is an Air Force pilot. In the movie, they made him a Navy SEAL. Which one makes more sense?
Yeah.
But the author totally trashed the movie, and that's why, because there were supposed to be three of them. And we never got the other two because of all the legal battles and stuff. And it's also why we will probably never see another movie until after he's passed because he lost a legal battle and everything else.
So was that Steve Zinn?
Clive Clussler.
No. I know Clive Custer's the writer of Sahara. I meant Steve Zinn, the actor. He was next to Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, I think so.
The only reason I know that name is because the voice was in Diary of the Wimpy Kid.
Was that him? What is his?
I think it was. He was also in Saving Silverman, I think.
Steve Zane, yeah.
On movie.
Yeah. But yeah, him as Al Giardino, I mean, he was great. That scene where he gets out of the car and he's dropping all those guns and all those clips and everything. That's just fun, man. That's it's a fun movie. It's one of those movies that's just fun to watch.
Well, as long as you brought up Zen stuff, when I want to Zen out after a hard day at work, or when I just want to just chill, I have three go-tos. Um, the original Predator. I love that movie. Um, the British TV show Red Dwarf, and both of those I can just completely zen out to. And then last but not least is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. There's just something. I was a fan of the first one, but T2 is just, it's, for me, it's like the creme of the Terminator series. All those I can just watch on repeat on a plane all the time. I never get sick of them.
Yeah. Mine. Sahara's probably one that I can just watch and watch. Princess Bride. Absolutely can watch that a million times over. And the original Die Hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. My go-tos are Die Hard and then The Expanse series. And if you've never seen The Expanse, I think I like it more than some other sci-fis that we may have mentioned. It's good.
As long as you brought up Die Hard, I mean, let's have the debate between the three of us. Is Die Hard an official Christmas movie? I think it
Absolutely.
is.
Yes, of course.
Yes. I watch it, and Bruce Willis, you're an amazing actor. What you're going through right now sucks. To see our heroes suffer through that, but I said this, what Michael J. Fox goes through sucks too. So
It does.
Oh, there's a name I forgot about. Oh, Michael J. Fox had so many good movies.
I watched Back to the Future series not long ago, actually.
Back to the Future. So I think our next podcast, I mean, we're always going to be talking about movies and books. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's pretty much games, movies, books. We'll have to get into it next, but we're coming up on the
Okay.
time here. So any closing statements?
Good night, Anna. Actual. Sorry, guys. My kiddo. It's kiddo's bedtime. Hey, you are precious. You're loved. You're wanted and amazing. And God made you special. You can do anything. Well, it's all audio, kiddo. There's no one saying. That's an awesome mask, though. Good night. Sorry, gentlemen.
So closing statements for this our inaugural podcast. Hillbilly, hit us with some hillbilly wisdom.
Hillbilly wisdom. Going back to the question that started this, hillbilly wisdom is have a backup of a backup of a backup. Store your data. Store it locally. That includes digging a hole in your backyard. That and you know, just always remember, tomorrow morning the sun will always rise. So don't let life get you too far down.
Guy,
If you're gonna put your guns in a Ziploc, put them in the same hole that Hillbilly is digging, and make sure that they are buried deep enough to where the soil won't shift. And uh, the ATF, see you later.
that's awesome. Well, from a guy, a Hoosier, and a hillbilly, in our inaugural podcast. Hope you check us out again, and thank you. We're out.
Indeed. Good night, everybody.
Good night.